This morning, New York Senator Chuck Schumer is calling on the FDA to investigate the energy drink Prime, which he says is being marketed to children and contains the caffeine equivalent of 6 cans of Coca-Cola.
Back in 2023, Prime was everywhere. And I mean everywhere. You couldn't step into a store without spotting empty shelves where Prime used to be. Parents were arguing in the aisles like it was some kind of wild shopping event, while kids were showing off bottles like they were rare trophies. The numbers were out of this world. Over $1.2 billion in sales, plus massive UFC and WWE deals, and even an FC Barcelona sponsorship. Prime wasn't just a drink anymore. It was a moment. For a while, it looked like Logan Paul and KSI had pulled off the impossible, two former rivals turning internet fame into a billion-dollar business move. People were calling it the next Gatorade. Some even claimed it was bigger. And honestly, for a while, that didn't sound crazy. But fast forward just a couple of years and the story completely flipped. Sales didn't just drop, they crashed, with over 90% declines in some places. Those bottles that once resold for hundreds, now sitting forgotten in clearance bins, going for less than $1. Suddenly, that billion-dollar energy drink wasn't being hyped, it was being roasted. Between scandals, lawsuits, health complaints, and straight-up greed, Prime couldn't escape the backlash. What began as unstoppable hype quickly turned into hesitation. And to really understand how this fall from grace happened,
sports drink Prime, which was launched by the YouTubers Logan Paul and KSI.
Yes.
Okay. Everyone's talking about it.
Drink.
Oh, really? It is sold out everywhere.
That was 20 quid for that one bottle.
For that?
Just that, yeah.
20 quid.
It's meant to be 2 quid.
20 quid?
We want you to give it a go.
We want you to give it
See
a
what you
review.
think of
Prime, okay, so... Ooh, smells a bit high.
What is that flavour you got there?
Tropical punch, it says.
Oh, Jesus.
Loosely. You've just come from the Maldives. How tropical
it's like
is that?
swallowing perfume. What is that?
we have to rewind all the way back to January 2022, when Prime first hit the scene and completely took over the internet. Logan Paul and KSI sold the internet a dream, and people bought it. Two massive creators with global empires, fan armies, and a years-long rivalry finally joined forces for something bigger than drama. When Logan dropped that announcement video, it racked up over 8 million views almost instantly. Kids were lining up before sunrise outside corner stores just to grab a single bottle. Resellers were going wild. Bottles of Prime were flipping online for hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars. It became the supreme of sports drinks. Every restock vanished in minutes, and stores had to hire security guards just to manage the chaos. Grown adults were fighting over flavored water like it was gold. By the end of year one, Prime had already cleared $250 million in revenue. The next year, it skyrocketed past $1.2 billion, one of the fastest-growing drink brands ever, not just in influencer culture, but in beverage history. That's what made Prime different. It wasn't just another YouTuber product or a quick cash grab.
If Prime and these other drinks, but Prime especially with their marketing we'll talk about, was being marketed as just a low-calorie, tasty coconut water. That's what it is. That's essentially what this is. And if it was marketed as such, I don't think there would be a lot of pushback and criticism. The challenge is that it's marketed with professional elite athletes consuming it as this optimal hydration electrolyte beverage that is good for you when you're exercising, good for your health, good for your hydration. And so they're advertising it like it has these benefits with hydration that simply don't hold up when you look at the science based on the actual electrolyte composition.
It was the biggest creator brand the world had ever seen. But while everyone was celebrating, cracks were already forming beneath the surface. Right when Prime hit its peak, Logan's past came back to haunt him. And it hit hard. Creator CoffeeZilla released a 3-part deep dive into Logan's Crypto Zoo project, an NFT game that promised big rewards but allegedly delivered nothing. Fans claimed they lost serious money, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands in some cases. The investigation exposed chaos behind the scenes. Missing developers, shady partners, broken promises, and people feeling completely betrayed. Logan had spent years trying to rebuild his image after that massive Japan controversy, working to rebrand as a businessman, athlete, and changed man. But in just a few weeks, that progress crumbled again. Instead of owning up to the mess, Logan fired back with lawsuits. And nothing screams confidence quite like throwing lawyers at another YouTuber doing an investigation. The timing couldn't have been worse, and Prime's golden image started to crack right in front of everyone. Even though the lawsuit was eventually thrown out, the damage was already done.
Lunchly versus Lunchables.
With Lunchly, you get double the amount of liquid.
Prime has no sugar added, more electrolytes, and more B vitamins.
Crunch Bar.
Whoa.
Feastables Crunch.
Yeah!
Our pizza uses real cheese. Theirs, as it says on their box, is mozzarella pasteurized prepared cheese product. They can't even call it real cheese.
Ooh.
We're also 30 less calories, 3 less grams of fat, and 8 less grams of sugar.
Parents weren't just checking hydration labels anymore. They were typing, "Who is Logan Paul?" and "Is Logan Paul a scammer?" into search bars. And when your main customers are kids and teens, that kind of spotlight is a total nightmare. But just when it seemed like Logan's reputation was the only thing dragging Prime down, the brand got slammed from a completely different and even more dangerous direction: politics. Things escalated fast when Chuck Schumer, one of the most influential politicians in the US, publicly called for an FDA investigation into Prime Energy. His concern was simple but explosive. Each can of Prime Energy packed around 200 to 250 milligrams of caffeine, all while using bright, youth-friendly branding. To put that in perspective, a regular Coca-Cola has about 34 milligrams, and Red Bull sits around 80. Even most hardcore energy drinks don't usually cross the 200 mark. Yet Prime's marketing leans straight into viral gamer culture, TikTok clips, and influencer hype. Exactly what younger audiences were consuming daily. Schumer accused Prime of blurring lines with its marketing, claiming it made health claims that sounded too good and failed to clearly warn about caffeine levels. That single press statement flipped everything overnight. Prime went from being the internet's favorite drink to being treated like something dangerous to have on school grounds. Suddenly,
Logan Paul is suing me for CryptoZoo, only a year after he thanked me for it. Rather than pay back his victims fully, Logan would rather publicly humiliate himself in court by accusing me of defaming him. He's hired 5 lawyers to sue me, which he hopes will stop me from exposing him again. You see, only hours before this lawsuit was filed, I had reached out to Logan Paul about a new investigation into one of his companies, which has just been accused by the Canadian government of being a multi-layered fraud in Canada. I obviously had questions, but before I was able to get answers, Logan's team of lawyers showed up to silence me.
schools across the country started banning it. Parents were side-eyeing bottles in their kids' hands. Teachers didn't want students walking into class jittery because they chugged an energy drink at 8 a.m. And even the Prime Hydration version, the one without caffeine, didn't escape the heat. Nutrition experts began calling out that the drink was being marketed like a top-tier athletic product, but when you look closer at the ingredients, it seemed more like flavored coconut water with a fancy label. Then came the taste test. Reviews going viral, calling some flavors artificial, overly sweet, or just weird. Once the internet makes fun of your flavor, that's it. The meme takes over. Before long, the same bottles that once sold for hundreds were now sitting in discount bins for $2 or less. As soon as health concerns hit mainstream headlines, the bans kept piling up. From Australia to the UK, and eventually, schools all across the US joined in. Prime went from being the cool drink everyone wanted to the one that could literally get you sent to the principal's office.
You gotta pay to put the Olympic logos on stuff. And Prime paid Kevin Durant. Prime did not pay the Olympics, so their exposure in that lawsuit is pretty major.
And just when it looked like things couldn't get worse, Prime tried to stage a comeback, one that nobody saw coming. Logan Paul and KSI decided to take things even further by teaming up with Mr. Beast to launch Lunchly, a pre-packaged meal kit that came with a small meal, a Feastables chocolate bar, and a Prime drink. On paper, it sounded genius. A combo of 3 of the biggest creator brands on the planet in one box. But the internet didn't see it that way for long. The backlash was instant. Popular creator Dan TDM called it out, accusing them of cashing in on young audiences for profit. His post exploded online, sparking thousands of heated comments. Then Dr. Mike, a well-known medical YouTuber, broke down the nutrition label and pointed out something shocking. Each Lunchly meal had only about 230 calories, way below what a child actually needs for a healthy lunch. To meet normal nutrition levels, kids would need to eat multiple kits, which raised even more red flags about sodium levels, marketing ethics, and whether the creators were being responsible with their audience. Instead of helping Prime's image, Lunchly ended up making things worse. What was meant to prove that Logan and KSI were serious entrepreneurs turned into one of the biggest PR disasters of the year, and the timing couldn't have been worse. By then, Prime was already losing steam, not because of one scandal, but because hype fades fast, especially with younger audiences. What's cool today becomes old news tomorrow. Once Prime slipped out of the social media spotlight, there wasn't much left holding it up. Then Lunchly tanked, the crypto drama resurfaced, and both founders became the internet's new punchline. Prime no longer looked like a billion-dollar empire. It looked like a hype train that ran out of track. By 2024, things took an even darker turn. A class action lawsuit was filed claiming Prime's grape flavor allegedly contained traces of industrial chemicals beyond recommended limits. Whether true or not, that headline alone was enough to cause chaos. Parents freaked out, stores pulled Prime off shelves, and sales dropped like a rock. Reports said revenue in some markets crashed from around $12 million to just over $3 million, while global profits plunged by more than 90%. In the US alone, sales were down nearly 40% by early 2024. By 2025, Prime wasn't being sold out. It was being cleared out. Dollar stores, clearance bins, discount racks, it was everywhere for all the wrong reasons. And when you think about it, maybe the problem was simple. A lot of people never really loved the drink. They loved the hype. Kids bought it because everyone else did, not because they actually wanted it. Once the buzz was gone, so was the loyalty. Just like fidget spinners, Prime became another viral fad that burned bright and faded fast. By the start of 2026, Prime had officially gone from viral gold to marketing cautionary tale. What was once a billion-dollar juggernaut now sat collecting dust on clearance racks, a reminder that internet fame burns fast and fades even faster. The same creators who once sold out arenas with fans chanting their names were now watching their drink brand become a punchline across social media. The fall wasn't just about money, it was about reputation, trust, and the limits of influence. When Logan Paul and KSI launched Prime, they didn't just sell a drink. They sold themselves, their personalities, their stories, their grind. Fans weren't just buying hydration, they were buying connection. It felt like being part of something exclusive, a community powered by their favorite creators. But that's the danger. Once the illusion breaks, the magic disappears. People began realizing they weren't supporting two underdog creators anymore. They were supporting a global corporate operation that cared more about quarterly numbers than the fans who built it. That realization changed everything. TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube started filling up with clips mocking Prime's downfall. People showed off shelves full of expired bottles, filmed Prime taste tests where they gagged on camera and joked about how the drink aged worse than a meme. Even die-hard fans began switching sides. What used to be pride turned into embarrassment. Collectors who once flexed rare flavors online were now auctioning them off for pennies just to clear space. The resale market that once made Prime seem untouchable was now proof of how far it had fallen. You could find unopened packs online listed for under $5, and still, nobody wanted them. Meanwhile, Logan tried pivoting, throwing himself into his wrestling career and new business ventures. But every public appearance came with comment sections full of Prime jokes. Need some hydration? Bet that taste's expired. The memes never stopped. And KSI? He kept quiet for a while, but even he couldn't escape the narrative. For years, he was seen as the more relatable one, the funny, carefree half of the duo. But now people were calling him complicit, saying he cashed out while fans got left holding the bag. That's when a different kind of backlash began. Not from haters, but from parents, schools, health experts, and community groups started calling for tighter regulations on influencer-driven products. They argued that Prime's rise showed just how easily hype could override logic, that kids were being targeted by celebrity marketing with almost no oversight. Debates sparked across news panels about where to draw the line between creativity and exploitation. Even competitors started distancing themselves. Other energy drink companies that once envied Prime's viral strategy began using it as a what not to do example in investor meetings. Internal leaks from distributors hinted at massive stock returns and unsold shipments piling up in warehouses. The numbers didn't lie. What used to move millions of units per month was now barely breaking even. And then came the documentaries. Major streaming platforms began circling the story. The rise and crash of Prime became internet history in real time. Behind-the-scenes footage, interviews with former staff, supply chain managers, even store clerks who remembered the chaos of those early restocks. Everyone wanted a piece of the story. Clips showed parents furious about caffeine levels, teachers confiscating bottles, and influencers who once begged for sponsorships now pretending they never promoted it. What made it even more surreal was watching Logan and KSI try to revive Prime's reputation. They launched limited edition bottles, exclusive flavors, and even tried nostalgic marketing, bringing back the classic Prime moment. But the audience wasn't buying it, literally or figuratively. The excitement was gone. The internet had moved on to the next obsession. Still, the story held one big lesson. And it wasn't just for creators. It showed brands everywhere how fragile hype really is. You can dominate the market one year and disappear the next if the foundation isn't real. Prime's empire was built on influence, not loyalty. Once fans saw the cracks, the trust vanished. And trust is the one thing you can't repackage or rebrand. By late 2025, the drink was selling mostly overseas, in smaller markets where the backlash hadn't hit as hard. But even there, the glow was fading fast. Retailers started cutting shelf space. Sponsorships quietly ended, and event partnerships evaporated. In some cases, the drink wasn't even featured in ads anymore, just part of bundle deals trying to move leftover stock. Behind closed doors, reports surfaced of internal tension between Logan's management and KSI's team. Both sides allegedly blamed the other for mishandling the brand image. Meetings got heated, and plans for new collaborations were quietly scrapped. Fans noticed too. The duo stopped appearing together as much. Interviews about Prime disappeared. What was once their proudest achievement became the topic nobody wanted to mention. The final blow came when industry insiders leaked that Prime's valuation had dropped by nearly 80% since its peak. Investors were pulling out, retailers were renegotiating contracts, and analysts were calling it one of the most dramatic collapses in influencer brand history. Just a few years earlier, people believed Logan and KSI had rewritten the rules of marketing. Now, it looked like they'd simply exposed how dangerous viral dependency could be. And the craziest part? Prime didn't collapse because of one scandal or one mistake. It collapsed because everything that made it powerful, hype, celebrity, online energy, also made it fragile. The same audience that built it could tear it down in a week with memes, tweets, and viral jokes. It was the perfect symbol of modern fame. Shiny, fast, and gone before you realize it. So as 2026 rolled in, the internet finally stopped arguing about Prime and started using it as a warning. A reminder that influence doesn't always mean integrity, and fame doesn't guarantee forever. Because once the hype fades, all that's left is the product. And if the product can't stand on its own, the empire falls. Once the hype faded, Prime didn't just slow down, it vanished. Shelves that were once empty from demand now sat untouched, and bottles that once sold out in minutes were gathering dust. What was supposed to be the ultimate influencer success story was falling apart faster than anyone could process. And just when people thought the drama couldn't possibly get any deeper, it did. KSI, who had mostly stayed clear of Logan's controversies, suddenly found himself dragged into one of his own. CoffeeZilla, the same investigator who previously called out Logan, dropped another explosive video. This time, he accused KSI of promoting a crypto project, claiming he hyped it up while quietly holding a big amount, and then allegedly sold about $150,000 worth right after his followers bought in. The blockchain activity told its own story, and fans didn't take it well. Comments flooded every post, saying they felt tricked, used, and misled. For many, this was the final straw. The internet had forgiven a lot. The cringe moments, the marketing chaos, even the questionable branding. But playing with fans' trust, especially in money matters, crossed a line. Suddenly, both founders of Prime were being linked to crypto controversies, and whatever goodwill they had left disappeared overnight. But what nobody expected was that the real trouble wasn't even coming from the outside anymore. It was coming from inside Prime itself. In late 2024, one of Prime's biggest manufacturing partners, Refresco, a global beverage bottling giant, filed a massive lawsuit. They accused Prime's parent company of unpaid bills, broken promises, and misleading projections. According to Refresco, Prime had signed a deal guaranteeing they'd purchase at least 18.5 million cases per year under a 3-year agreement. Trusting that promise, Refresco invested heavily. New equipment, production lines, and logistics tailored specifically for Prime. But then came the sales crash. Demand fell off a cliff, and Refresco claimed Prime suddenly backed out of the deal, leaving them with huge losses and idle production lines. The bottler sued for a whopping $68 million, and insiders said it was just the beginning. Other suppliers soon followed. Companies handling packaging, shipping, and marketing all filed complaints of their own, saying Prime's team had overpromised and underdelivered. Behind the scenes, whispers spread about unpaid invoices and chaotic management. What was once a sleek global operation was now described as disorganized, unstable, and scrambling to stay afloat. And then came the most embarrassing moment yet, one that played out on the global stage. The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee dropped a lawsuit accusing Prime of trademark infringement. The brand had used protected terms like Olympic Team USA and Going for Gold in promotions without official approval. and that's a massive legal no-go. Those phrases are tightly protected, and using them without sponsorship rights crosses serious boundaries. The accusation? That Prime was trying to ride Olympic credibility to boost sales, all without actually paying for the partnership. That single headline went viral within hours. Major news outlets picked it up, and memes exploded across social media. Suddenly, Prime wasn't being talked about as a success anymore. It was being mocked as a brand that couldn't stop tripping over itself. At this point, the fall was complete. Prime wasn't just a failed product, it had become a warning, a case study in how fame, ego, and bad decisions can take something promising and turn it into a total disaster. What made it even more tragic was how much potential it really had. When it launched, Prime had the perfect mix of timing, marketing, and community hype. It tapped into nostalgia for sports drinks, influencer power, and a sense of belonging among young fans. But instead of building structure, the founders leaned on momentum. Instead of long-term sustainability, they chased shock value and trend cycles. And the internet doesn't forgive that. Once people sense a brand is built more on ego than authenticity, the magic breaks, and it never comes back. By 2025, the numbers were brutal. Prime's overall revenue was down over 90% in some regions. In the US, sales fell nearly 40% in the first few months of the year. Warehouses were overflowing with unsold inventory. Distributors quietly cut orders, while retailers shoved Prime into discount racks next to generic store brands. Dollar stores started stocking it in bulk. Clearance bins were filled with it. Once upon a time, those same bottles resold online for hundreds. Now, they couldn't move even for $1. Fans who once bragged about owning every flavor were now joking about using them as collectibles from a bygone era. Meanwhile, Logan and KSY's partnership began to strain under the pressure. Insiders whispered about growing tension between their management teams. Finger-pointing, blame-shifting, and quiet resentment. Both sides accused the other of ruining the brand's image. Some claimed Logan wanted to double down and fight the lawsuits aggressively, while KSI reportedly wanted to walk away quietly before things got worse. They stopped appearing together at events. Interviewers noticed they avoided Prime-related questions. And when Prime's official accounts went quiet for weeks at a time, fans knew something was off. What started as a dream collaboration between two global icons had turned into a business breakup waiting to happen. To make matters worse, Prime's reputation among other brands was completely destroyed. Once considered a marketing revolution, it was now used as a cautionary tale in industry conferences. A perfect example of why influencer-driven empires can't survive without real structure and accountability. Corporate analysts called it a masterclass in overexposure. Even Mr. Beast, who had previously collaborated with Logan and KSI through the Lunchly project, reportedly distanced himself quietly. While he never addressed it publicly, fans noticed that Prime disappeared from his content entirely. And when your biggest allies start backing away, that says everything. But the biggest lesson came from the audience itself. People realized they had helped build Prime, not because the drink was great, but because the hype made them feel part of something. When the hype faded, so did the connection. The loyalty wasn't to the product, it was to the personalities. And when those personalities lost credibility, so did everything attached to them. The fall of Prime became a cultural shift moment, a turning point for influencer marketing as a whole. Regulators began watching influencer-led brands more closely. Parents became more skeptical about what their kids were buying. Even big corporations started reconsidering their influencer partnerships, scared to end up in the same position. And that's the truth. Prime didn't just crash because the internet got bored. It crashed because trust was destroyed, shortcuts were taken, promises were broken. Every controversy stacked on top of the last until the entire empire collapsed under its own weight. Logan Paul and KSI didn't just hurt their brand, they sabotaged it. Prime could have been a 10-year empire, a legacy product that proved creator brands could compete with corporate giants. Instead, it became one of the fastest and most public brand collapses in modern history. By 2026, Prime was barely mentioned in headlines anymore. The drink that once defined internet culture was now a footnote in business documentaries. It went from trending hashtag to trivia question. And in a strange way, that's what makes the story so fascinating. Because it shows exactly how fragile hype can be. No matter how big your following is, no matter how powerful your marketing machine gets, if your product can't stand on its own, fame won't save it. Once trust is gone, the audience doesn't forgive, it just moves on. And that's exactly what happened here. So now, the Prime saga stands as a warning. Proof that hype without heart and fame without accountability always comes crashing down. If you made it this far, Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Prime could ever make a comeback, or is it done for good? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who remembers when Prime was everywhere. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.